A policewoman and her team embark on a search for a young girl who dials 911, reporting her mother's unresponsiveness. But the situation takes a grim twist as the officer enters the house later that evening. Welcome back. Before we dive into the story, take a moment to smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell as well, so that you won't miss out on any of our upcoming videos. Officers were unusually busy at the police station that day, engrossed in a murder investigation. The helplines buzzed with calls addressing emergencies citywide. Amidst the chaos, a strange call reached them from a little girl. 911, what's your emergency? Asked the dispatcher, who encountered an eerie silence, succeeded by a wheezing sound on the receiver. Tearfully, the little girl revealed, I'm hungry. Mommy doesn't wake up all day. Concerned, the dispatcher inquired about her location. I don't know. Mommy told me to call 911 if I'm in trouble. The frightened girl explained. Pressing for more details, the dispatcher asked, Calm down, and what's your name? Maggie, the girl replied. Seeking her address, the dispatcher faced a somber silence before Maggie shared her earlier residence, uncertain of her current location. Maggie, can you tell me about your current location? Can you describe it? Asked the dispatcher. Although the little girl didn't know the address, she was able to give the officer visual clues to her current location. I can see big gray houses outside. A big angry dog is barking outside. There are trees and a broken gate outside, described Maggie. All right, Maggie. Stay where you are. We're sending help right away, replied the dispatcher. The details were then passed on to Officer Nancy, 34, and her team. They immediately left in search of the girl and arrived at the first address she'd given. The cops marched to the address and looked around for details matching the girl's description, but saw it was entirely different. Anyone in there? Nancy knocked on the door, but nobody answered. She peeped into the glass window and saw it was dark and dusty inside. It appeared to have been unlived in for a very long time. Nancy then checked with the neighbors and learned that a family of 3, a man, his wife, and a little girl named Maggie, used to live there. Do you know where they are now? Asked Nancy. No, officer, a man replied. After Mr. Jake died in an accident 6 months ago, his wife and daughter became very poor. The landlord kicked them out because they couldn't pay rent. I don't know their address, but I heard from a friend who'd seen them in an impoverished area 12 miles from here, the man continued. Nancy followed the clues and headed to that spot. It was already growing dark, and to make things worse, the area was out of electricity. Nancy silenced a fellow officer upon hearing a faint dog bark. She remembered Maggie's mention of a constantly barking dog near her. That might be it. Let's go that way, Nancy said, instructing her team to follow. They arrived at a small shabby house, and Nancy turned on the flashlight, revealing a silhouette near the window. Upon closer inspection, she saw a little girl crying and waving for help. A stray dog barked incessantly outside and charged towards the cops. Nancy swiftly picked up a pedal, scared the dog away, then kicked the door open, entering the house with little knowledge of what else was inside. Hey, it's okay. It's okay. Don't cry, Nancy comforted Maggie, who ran to her crying. I'm hungry. Mommy's not waking up all day. She's sleeping, the distraught girl kept saying repeatedly. Nancy carried Maggie outside and put her in the car. Please give her some biscuits. I'll be right back, she told her team and went back inside to check where Maggie's mother was. She searched for the woman everywhere in the house, but couldn't find her. As Nancy kept looking, she found a doorway to a basement. She walked in and found Maggie's mother lying unconscious on the floor. Nancy rushed to her and touched her to awaken her, only to feel her cold body. She was dead. Officers, get in here quick! She freaked out and immediately alerted medics and social services. Moments later, an ambulance arrived and scooped the woman's body up to be taken for an autopsy. Nancy grappled with how to break the news to Maggie, who had believed her mom was just sleeping. How will I tell her that her mother's dead? She wondered. Mommy, where are they taking my mommy? Mommy, wait! Maggie said as she ran after the ambulance. Nancy stopped her and held her tight, trying to comfort her. Sweetie, Mommy will be fine. Be a good girl and listen to what I say. No, I want to go to Mommy. Leave me, Maggie said. Sweetie, Mommy will be back. You'll stay with me until then, all right? Said Nancy as she tried to comfort Maggie, who had now begun to cry, clutching her little teddy bear tight. When social services arrived, moments later, they informed Nancy that Maggie would be sent to a foster home. However, the cop didn't like the idea, and it hurt her more to think about the impact it would make on the 5-year-old girl when she learned her mom was dead. No, I'll take the child home tonight. She has to clean up, eat, and calm down. I'll bring her to the shelter tomorrow, said Nancy. Despite weighing up the risks, the officer took Maggie home. My God, darling, who is this? Jacob, Nancy's husband, was stunned when he answered the door and saw Nancy holding an asleep Maggie in her arms. I'll tell you everything, honey, but not now. I'm tired. Can we eat first? Replied Nancy. I found her mother's body in the basement. We're yet to find out how she died, said Nancy as she narrated everything to her husband. Does the girl know that? Asked Jacob. No, I don't know how to tell her. She still thinks her mother's fine in the hospital. Her heart will break when she comes to know the truth. Poor thing, replied Nancy. But how long do we keep her with us? Jacob asked. Later that night, after Maggie fell asleep, a strange idea struck Nancy. Darling, I was thinking, why don't we adopt Maggie? She asked Jacob. We've been trying for a baby for a really long time. I really don't know what's wrong with my body. The tests are fine. There are no complications. But I don't know why I'm not able to conceive, she continued. As it turned out, the couple couldn't conceive for several years. They tried every method to have babies, but none was successful. At some point, Nancy had even given up on the idea of becoming a mother and began focusing entirely on her career. She was exhausted and was constantly in low spirits, assuming she could never bear a child. However, even after it had been just for a little time, being around Maggie healed her grieving heart. Honey, look at her. She's a little angel who needs parental love and support. She'll be put up for adoption, and some random couple will adopt her. Why don't we take her in? She's such a beautiful little miracle. What do you think? Nancy said to Jacob, who reflected on his wife's words as he looked at Maggie, fast asleep between them. He felt the little girl's innocence and presence abolish the hollow in their lives, and realized that this was the joy he'd craved all his life. It didn't matter to Jacob that Maggie was not his biological child. According to him, a family was about love and affection, not genetics. Jacob agreed to the adoption, but the next big challenge was how Maggie would react to seeing her mother's funeral. The next day, Nancy left Maggie at the foster home, promising to come for her soon. 2 days later, the officer took her to her mother's funeral. Anxious as she led Maggie to her mother's coffin, Nancy didn't know how to tell the little one that her mother had died of a heart attack, as revealed in the autopsy. Honey, stay right here. This place is so quiet, isn't it? She tried distracting Maggie. Yeah, full of butterflies and flowers and candles. What are those crosses for? And what's in that black box? Asked the poor girl, unaware it was a coffin holding her mother's lifeless body. Sweetheart, sometimes when God loves us and becomes overly protective of us, He invites us to His house in heaven, and we can live there with Him forever, Nancy said. A house in heaven. Maggie exclaimed. "Yes, sweetie," Nancy answered. "Where's Mommy? I want to see her," said Maggie. "Honey, your mommy is gone to live with God, and she told me to take care of you. You'll know everything when you become big." Nancy's heart ripped apart as she couldn't explain it further to a naive Maggie. Tears flowed down her eyes as she hugged the girl tightly and realized it was time for her to make the next most significant decision of her life. A few months later, Jacob and Nancy adopted Maggie and threw a lavish party for friends and family to celebrate their joy. Jacob raised a toast as his laughter filled the party home. "I thought the happiest day of my life was when I met Nancy," he began. "But I was wrong. I was the happiest when I saw my wife holding a little miracle, fast asleep in her arms. And when she asked me, 'Honey, can we be her parents?' I couldn't deny the pleasure of becoming a dad. Cheers to my happy little family of 3, he said. No, honey, wait, not 3, Nancy interrupted Jacob, who was shocked. "We're gonna be a happy little family of 4, she revealed, handing him an envelope with a positive pregnancy test. Jacob couldn't believe his eyes, and was indeed the happiest man on earth. The couple's prayers were answered most beautifully at the right time. "Happy little family of 4, everyone," said Jacob as he raised a toast with tears of joy gushing from his eyes. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel if you have yet to do so. Be sure to also hit that notification bell if you don't want to miss out on our upcoming videos.